The closing bell has rung, but the business story continues. I'm Robert Tan, you're watching Business Brief. Let's get started. Malacañang asserts President Ferdinand Marcos Junior has yet to receive a copy of the bill, giving him powers to suspend the excise tax on fuel. Iran threatens to close the Strait of Hormuz. The Bureau of Internal Revenue files several tax evasion cases against flood control contractors, Sara and Curlee Discaya. The U.S.-Iran war enters its fourth week, driving global oil prices higher. Meanwhile, the Philippine government has yet to implement suspension of excise tax on fuel. Ivy Reyes has the details.
Malacañang clarified criticisms on the president's alleged lack of urgency in enforcing the reduction of excise tax, which he himself certified as an urgent bill in Congress. According to the palace, the bill has not reached the president until now, but it is impossible for PBBM not to enforce it at the soonest possible time because he also calls for alleviating measures for the most affected sectors. As to where the cause of the delayed enforcement of the excise tax lies, Malacañang said they cannot tell for sure who or what is causing this bottleneck. As of March 23, 4 weeks since the Iran war erupted, the Philippines has trade talks with Japan, South Korea, Brunei, and Thailand for additional supply. There is also a crisis committee formed and tasked to provide mitigating measures, but the palace refused to give out a clue on the officials who will sit on this committee.
Okay, bago pa po may nagsuggest na gumawa ng crisis committee, nag-utos na po ang Pangulo na maggawa officially ng crisis committee. So hintayin na lamang po natin ang dokumento if ina-finalize na po.
Asked if the president is exempt from the anti-EPL provision of the General Appropriations Act or the specific prohibition of using government aid for politicking, Malacañang said that the fuel subsidy distribution attended by PBBM is his event. The palace also stressed the need for the president's presence for the public to see a well-managed government and a leader who actually works in times of crisis.
That is the event of the president. So he should at least show to the people that the government is running, the government is properly managed for the country and for the people. So dapat makita siya. Dapat nakikita ang Pangulo dahil ang pagpapakita ng Pangulo ay pagpapakita ng tiwala sa mga kababayan natin na kung anumang krisis meron tayo ay maaari natin itong malampasan.
Meanwhile, Palace Press Officer Claire Castro takes another swipe at Navotas City Representative and former Alianza's late campaign manager, Toby Tiangco, and said he cannot substantiate his claims of a corruption-free Philippines if Vice President Sara Duterte takes the helm.
Sino nagsabi niyan?
Isa po nagsabi, si Congressman Toby Tiangco.
Yes. Itong si Congressman Toby Tiangco, ang daming sinasabi, pero wala tayong nakikitang anumang ebidensya.
On this note, Yusek Castro also responded to Batangas Representative Leandro Leviste's social media post over counterclaim demand over libel raps filed by Leviste. According to Castro, she does demand 500 million pesos in damages due to the, quote, twisted statements of the congressman, which led to her besmirched integrity as palace press officer. She deserves the compensation, Castro insists. Ivy Reyes, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
President Marcos Jr. wants to speed up the long-delayed rehabilitation of Marawi City and upgrades to Metro Manila's transport network. Marawi's transport, energy, and water systems, along with community rebuilding, see costs rise from over 7 billion pesos to 9.5 billion pesos due to updated logistics and civil works. The Metro Manila transport projects also face delays. Contracts for Unified Grand Central Common Station project with BF Corporation and Foresight Development and Surveying Company are terminated after 67% completion, with almost half of total project costs disbursed. Former presidential advisor for political affairs Gabriel Claudio sounds the alarm on the sustainability of the fuel aid program for the transport sector. On BNC's The Spokes, Claudio warns the government may not be able to sustain the subsidy distribution if the Middle East crisis escalates. He also rated the Marcos Junior administration 7 to 8 out of 10 over its response to the current oil crisis.
My problem is, di ba?
Limitado talaga.
Limitado talaga. Pangalawa, yung reserve, walang mailabas na langis yung gobyerno eh. Kasi most of our oil reserves are in the hands of the private sector.
Kaya yung,
Di ba?
alam mo, very reasonable, very legitimate ang question mo. That palagay ko walang makakasugot ng diretso ngayon yan.
Wala.
Hanggang kailan kakayanin ng gobyerno yung kabibigay ng ayuda, kabibigay ng subsidy, no? Kaya kailangan ipagdasal natin hindi magtagal itong gera ito eh. Nandiyan ang kasagutan yan eh.
Ultra-Bilyonaryo Enrique Razon-owned International Container Terminal Services Incorporated, or ICTSI, is selling its 51% stake in a container terminal in Yantai, China to its local partner. ICTSI said its unit, ICTSI Hong Kong Limited, signed an equity transfer agreement with Yantai Port Holdings Company Limited, covering its interest in Yantai International Terminal Limited. The company said the move would allow it to redeploy resources to other assets and projects in its pipeline. Iran threatens to close the Strait of Hormuz and target regional infrastructure if the U.S. attacks its power plants. The details from Joel Caballero.
Iran's military warns it will close the Strait of Hormuz indefinitely and attack regional infrastructure if the U.S. attacks its power plants. On Saturday, U.S. President Donald Trump threatened to hit and obliterate Iranian power plants if the country fails to fully open the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours. The Strait of Hormuz has not been fully closed and remains under Iran's control. In Israel, dozens of people were reported injured during Iranian missile strikes at the southern part of the country and on Tel Aviv over the weekend. Israel's military said it has intercepted 92% of Iran's ballistic missile. The Israeli army, in turn, struck the Kasmieh Bridge in southern Lebanon over the weekend. Israel's military has been ordered to destroy all bridges over Lebanon's Litani River and to step up the demolition of Lebanese homes near the Israeli border. The UN human rights chief has criticized Israel's actions in Lebanon. International law generally prohibits militaries from attacking civilian infrastructure. British media reports a nuclear-powered Royal Navy submarine is now at the Arabian Sea. The HMS Anson is capable of launching cruise missile attacks into Iran. The UK agreed to allow the US to use British bases to carry out operations to degrade the missile sites used to attack ships in the Strait of Hormuz. Meanwhile, 100 Greeks touched down in Athens after a special repatriation flight from Abu Dhabi. They were able to bring their pets with them.
The flight was like the dogs and cats were not even there. You did not hear them at all. It was a fantastic flight.
This was the first flight organized for pets. The Greek Interior Ministry, which took part in organizing the flight, asserts pets are part of the family. Joel Caballero, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Megawide Construction Corporation is shifting to in-city socialized condominiums as part of its housing strategy. This will position the segment as a key solution to the country's 8 million unit housing backlog. The company said it is now prioritizing developments under the government's Pambansang Pabahay para sa Pilipino program. This will promote higher density homes near major job centers. Megawide noted it has moved further down the affordability spectrum as demand from Filipino home buyers outpaces supply. An economist projects inflation to range between 4.5 and 5.5% in 2026. Michael Ricafort, chief economist at Rizal Commercial Banking Corporation, told BNC's Business 360 this is due to tensions in the Middle East. If his projection holds, it will be higher than the 1.7% recorded in 2025.
To take into account the 100 to 150 basis point increase attributed due to the higher price of petroleum, gasoline, diesel, energy products, and of course, it would lead to higher prices of other goods and services.
He also said the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, or BSP, may issue hawkish signals.
There's a chance for a the hawkish signal in the sense that there could be a possible BSP rate hike on the next rate-setting meeting on April 23. So, yeah, that's really meant to, to deliberately slow down economies, not just here, but also in many other parts of the world. They would adopt a similar approach. And that has been the pattern also. Last time we saw it 4 years ago during the Russia-Ukraine war.
House Majority Leader Sandro Marcos files a bill to give fresh graduates free academic records, easing their transition into the workforce. The Academic and Labor Pathways Assistance for Students, or ALPAS Act, requires all public and private colleges to provide essential employment documents for free. Each graduate gets at least 5 copies of transcripts, certificates of graduation, and certified true copies of their diplomas. The measure removes practical barriers in job seeking and improves access to academic documents, helping young Filipino adults enter the workforce. Senator Bam Aquino calls for the immediate declaration of a state of national emergency amid soaring oil prices. The move would enable government to implement price control measures and fast-track release of financial aids to affected sectors.
Mahalagang mag-declare na sila ng state of national emergency dahil nasa emergency level na ang estado ng napakaraming pamilyang Pilipino. Nung tumaas yung presyo ng gasolina at diesel, ramdam na ramdam yan ng napakaraming Pilipino. So unang-una, pag may state of national emergency, pwede silang maglagay ng price ceiling sa mga essential goods. Pangalawa, yung ayuda na nilaan namin sa 2026 budget, ilabas na at ibigay na sa transport workers at suporta sa mga MSME. Mahalaga na walang magsasarang negosyo sa panahon ng krisis na ito. At pangatlo, babantayan natin na yung mga ginawa namin sa Senado, pagtanggal ng excise tax, yung giving the President powers to suspend the excise tax, at itong ayudang ito, babantayan namin na mapunta talaga ito sa taong bayan.
Lawmakers have passed a bill temporarily suspending excise tax on petroleum products, although President Marcos Junior has not yet signed it. He promises immediate enforcement once it reaches his office. Philippine and Japanese officials, business leaders, and experts will gather to mark 70 years of diplomatic relations of the two countries. The forum will feature Finance Secretary Frederick Go and Alfred T., Vice Chairman of GT Capital Holdings. Discussions will focus on trade, investment, and regional security, highlighting Philippine-Japan collaboration. Organizers said the event comes amid complex regional security, emphasizing the need to strengthen ties. The Anti-Money Laundering Council, or AMLA, uncovers links between flood control contractors Candaba Mayor Rene Maglanque and Noel Cruz. Documents obtained by Bilyonaryo show AMLA flagged about 750 million pesos in suspicious transactions between Maglanque's Global Crete Builders and Cruz's Santo Cristo Construction over 6 years. From 2019 to 2022, Global Crete received 51 checks totaling 158.2 million pesos with no details on the transfers. AMLA noted the volume and value of checks issued by Santo Cristo to Global Crete surged from 2023 to 2025. The Bureau of Internal Revenue, or BIR, files 8 tax evasion cases against the Discaya couple. Court of Tax Appeal records show Pacifico Curlee Discaya faces 4 cases dated March 12 as sole proprietor of St. Gerard Construction. Cesara Discaya faces 4 cases dated February 3 as sole proprietor of Fine Things Fashion Warehouse. The cases add to legal pressure on the couple linked to the flood control scandal. We'll take a short break. This is Business Brief. Fuel prices are rising and the impact is immediate. Transport, food, and daily costs are all going up. This isn't a future risk. It's already being felt by businesses, by workers, and by households across the country. The question now is simple. What are we doing about it, and can we actually cushion the impact? And to help us break this down, we're joined by Sir Percival Peña-Reyes, Assistant Professor of Economics at Ateneo de Manila University. Good afternoon, Professor. Welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Robert, and all of you. Thank you for having me.
Professor, this is no longer theoretical. Filipinos are already feeling higher fuel and food prices. Now, how serious is the situation right now?
Well, indeed, it is already serious, and potentially it could get worse if this war drags on. But right now, it's not yet a full-blown crisis. So, bottom line, really, this is going to be painful if this drags on, but right now, still contained. Okay? People are already feeling the squeeze. Okay? And if this drags on for the next 6 months or so, there's going to be, as mentioned by other economists, high risk of inflation, especially if oil prices stay elevated. So, really, a simple way to think about this situation, it's going to entail well, firstly, full inflation. Okay? See that it's rising slowly. Okay? Fuel prices are the ones that are already spiking. But overall, stable for now, but we have to really monitor the news very carefully. It might be unstable underneath, especially if this crisis drags on.
But Professor, at what point does an oil shock stop being a price issue and become a full economic problem?
Yeah, interesting question. I've heard economists dangle the word stagflation. No? It's the combination of slow economic growth and high inflation. It's the combination of stagnation and inflation. Okay? That's probably the worst outcome that we can imagine for this crisis. No? And to answer your question, this oil shock could become full-blown economic problem when it spreads beyond fuel and begins to systematically slow income, jobs, and growth.
Yes.
Okay? So what we are monitoring closely, two things that could happen together. Okay, when people begin to start cutting spending, okay, do so, very hard. Okay, yung talagang tipid na, no? And at the same time, on the production side, businesses begin to cut jobs or investment, and that combination could create a self-reinforcing slowdown. Okay? Less spending, less income, even less spending. Okay? So that is tantamount to having a lethargic economy. And all told, when behavior begins to change, people stop spending, businesses stop growing, perhaps that is the moment when this problem becomes, one from an inflation problem to economic slowdown.
What does this mean for MSMEs, especially small food businesses and transport operators? What are they going through at the moment?
Yeah, MSMEs, particularly small food businesses, transport operators, pretty much they're already feeling pressure. They're being squeezed from both sides actually, at once. Rising cost and weakening demand. Okay? So all told, if you're going to see where this puts MSMEs right now, they are not in the phase of closures, okay, but already you can see, there is a likelihood that many of them have already cutting margins, becoming flat.
So are we seeing that already, Professor? They're feeling the squeeze. Are they seeing more they're cutting margins? Are they reducing staff or slowing operations just to survive while waiting for things to ease up?
Not as serious yet. Okay? But if this runs on, we're likely moving towards that direction. Okay, transport sector, of course, already in critical mode right now.
Yes.
Okay, food businesses under severe stress. Okay, but the bigger risk here, isn't just high prices. Let's keep that in mind. Bigger risk here is when these small businesses can no longer pass costs on to consumers because of the type of demand. And at the same time, they can themselves no longer absorb these costs. And that's the point where these businesses could likely start disappearing.
And for workers, Professor, expenses are rising faster than income. Are we seeing real wages already declining?
Well, not really as of now, in terms of decline in real wages. But definitely businesses on that side, they're under a lot of stress right now.
You've mentioned, Professor, that the small businesses can no longer pass on the cost to the consumers who are already tightening their belts. And what does this mean to a country like ours who are a consumer spending economy?
I'm sorry, could you repeat? For a country
who relies on consumer spending predominantly. So what does this mean if, let's say, the small business can no longer pass the cost to the consumers who are already tightening their belts? Where's the balance there? How can we mitigate this so that still there are a lot of consumers who will be spending at least?
That's the delicate balance there, Robert, because as we have learned during our pandemic experience, that could be a cycle, where there is lethargic demand, and that would mean closures for businesses. And when businesses close, people lose jobs, people lose income, and that would mean even more lethargic demand. And of course, our country largely consumption-driven, so that's going to mean a lot down the line. But not yet evident right now. We have to be clear, not yet the trajectory. If this drags on again, it's going to be something that we will have to worry about.
Professor, many say this is a global problem beyond our control. But realistically, how much of this can the Philippines influence?
Yeah, okay. We really cannot control the cost. Okay? So this is external supply side, largely out of our control. Okay? Our country would have still meaningful control over how painful the outcome would be. Government would have a huge role to play here. Okay? Metaphorically speaking, we cannot stop the storm.
Yes.
Okay? But probably we can manage, or control, mitigate how many boats are going to sink.
Like you've mentioned, Professor, if we can't control global oil prices and it's beyond our control, where should government focus right now to help cushion the impact?
Yeah, okay, good question. Because right now, really, we have limited arsenal. The government has limited on both fronts. I've been saying that in other venues as well, that monetarily, fiscally, okay, the government has a job right now, and it's to fight the storm, but to protect really the most vulnerable parts of the economy from breaking first. Okay? Right now, the goal is to, as I mentioned, we're not really here to stop the storm, okay? But to somehow alleviate the pain. Okay? And more importantly, to prevent systemic breakdown. Okay, so we have to really protect three major pressure points, the most vulnerable ones. No? Firstly, transport. Okay, we have to ensure that there is continuous movement of people, goods. Okay, food would be the second crucial one. Okay, because this is, after all, household survival that we're talking about. And MSMEs, because easily, 90, even more percent of our establishments are
MSMEs, yes.
and if these three hold, transport, food, and MSMEs, okay, probably there's a huge likelihood that our economy will not break. Okay? So bottom line, we cannot control oil prices. That's largely out of our hands. No? But we can control whether this turns into a livelihood crisis. So the most effective strategy for us right now would be to target sectors where failure spreads fastest and keep them functioning at all costs. So even if we have limited resources right now, our government, they have to be, of course, used judiciously. Really, as many economists have been clamoring.
To keep them afloat. Now, Professor, are the current responses like subsidies or targeted aid enough, or are they still too small and too slow? Tomorrow, we're going to see another round of oil price hike. So what else should be done? Are these subsidies enough?
Well, again, if I may use a metaphor, okay, they're acting really more like painkillers than a cure. Okay, they are still very useful, but not enough if the pressure continues. And that's why we have to really monitor current events. Okay, so right now, the policy is keeping our system from snapping, but really not strong enough to fully support it. The situation worsens or drags on, our government will likely have to choose, okay? Significantly more, so that will mean bigger subsidies, tax cuts, or accept deeper economic pain, and that will mean job losses. Okay? But, that, of course, is something that we do not want, right? Given really our resources right now, there's only so much that can be done.
Professor, looking at the foreign exchange with the peso to the dollar exchange rate, we've seen the peso breach the 60 peso mark. What is your outlook in the next coming weeks or months going into 2026?
Well, I think for currency, the fact that it breached 60, it's understandable. Maybe a lot of jitters going on, but others also point to really this coinciding with weakness in the economy.
Some say that it could probably go to 62 to 65, but based on your own research and your observation, how high can it go, or will it just be hovering in the 60, 59 mark?
Probably there. I don't see any indications yet that it would reach that level. Probably the BSP, as already mentioned in its statement, might at some point intervene to smoothen out fluctuations, especially if it reaches the extent that inflation is already going to be affected.
Now, looking at the other ways to try to mitigate the situation, should government consider cutting or suspending fuel excise taxes, even if it affects revenues?
Well, that is an interesting question because it's already being talked about right now. But as I mentioned in another occasion, this was asked also. It can do so now temporarily. The situation calls for it, but it has to be weighed against long-term consequences, especially this definitely cannot be something permanent. not affording.
Having said that, Professor, beyond short-term relief, what structural changes should you already be accelerating energy diversification, transport reforms, or supply chains?
Yeah, another interesting question. No? Okay, short-term relief, which is of course still important. No?
Yes.
Okay, but structural reform really is what will determine whether we'll keep, being fragile and breaking in the future. All told, no, we have to be better prepared. Structural crisis actually exposes yet again, our structural weakness. So the highest impact priorities to accelerate right now, okay, would be, of course, energy diversification, okay, especially power and transport, okay, transport system reform, supply chain resilience, urban design, okay, because if we are to go by Stephen Covey's framework for time management, no, we're fighting right now, no, we're the urgent and important quadrant. But really, the more important ones are the not urgent but important.
Yes.
Okay? Those would be on the medium-term and long-term initiatives. No? So medium-term would be better public transportation, more fuel reserves. In the long-term, renewable energy and less oil dependence. Because we have to understand why we are feeling the impact right now, even if we're, far away from that war. There is a ripple effect that affects us because we're still largely dependent on oil.
Yes.
That's 90% of our oil is still imported. But if we are able to again win ourselves away from that dependence and explore others, then probably would be in a better position to cushion ourselves from shocks.
Well, there are other groups looking at revisiting the deregulation law. What are your thoughts on that?
Again, something.
Should it be revisited?
Yes. Now, this is an example of the zombie economic argument, as I mentioned in another instance. We're reviving a long discredited something long discredited, the OPSF. We have to understand that it caused us more harm
than good.
Okay, and we also do not have the resources to scale something like that. Okay. I would like to cite something very insightful shared by the Chair Emeritus of the Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry. I had an occasion to be interviewed alongside Mr. Sergio Ortiz-Luis. Okay. The focus really ought to be on the supply, which in turn would lower the price. So
yes.
Government focus on that. Because, revisiting policies like this, the regulation, etc., that's not really the point. The regulation is not really the problem. You risk also signaling something bad to investors, that we could be fickle-minded and, what we know is investors do not like something instability, that you're going to change it again.
Yes.
So our aim right now really is to focus on the problem, find more sources of supply, the price, move it downward. And things like all the regulation, not really the problem here.
Do you think it'll just muddle the situation?
Yes.
Okay. Now, Professor, for ordinary Filipinos watching right now, what practical adjustments actually make a difference for them as they wait for this to ease out?
Well, I have not to. I feel for the ordinary person because even I feel this. Okay? And perhaps the most effective personal strategy right now, if I may share, is to really reduce our exposure to fuel-driven costs. Not just spending in general, but really focusing on our transport habits. If we have to go out, make it purposing, that when we don't go out, we're able to accomplish several productive tasks all at once.
Do you also share that to your students as do you share your thoughts also on your students on what they also need to do to help them through this as well?
Yes, of course, most definitely. We also have to be aware, where we buy our food, plan ahead, and be more conscious of energy use. So, these are areas where they might seem small or trivial, but taken all together, they can actually compound into meaningful things.
Yes, that's true. And finally, Professor, if this situation drags on, are we prepared or are we simply reacting as the pressure builds?
Well, I do not want to mince words here. We are currently reacting more than showing our preparedness. Okay? But our individual actions can make a real difference still. Okay? So, for small businesses, if you're a small business, probably you need to be more mindful of cash flows, cost sharing, and for people like me, who are working people, daily workers, okay, we can focus on smart transport, strategic shopping, our energy use, have small cash buffers, okay. Now, if we are consistent in doing these things, probably we can survive, okay. Even if this becomes a prolonged shock, hopefully, God willing, we can survive, okay. But these are things that we can do. But the more meaningful structural reforms really, they should have happened long ago.
Well, that's very good advice, Professor. Small acts, if compounded and if everybody works together, that becomes a big effort and help to everybody.
Yes, indeed. We have to be more conscious and, as much as we can, try to help each other. There was a Grab delivery that I booked recently. I gave a small tip, 30 pesos, 50 pesos.
And that goes a long way, yes.
Really was very grateful, appreciative. So, maliit na tulong that you can afford to give someone. Magtulungan tayo na lang.
Yes, okay. Okay, on that note, thank you very much, Professor, for your time and your insights on our show. Thank you.
Thank you very much also for inviting me.
We'll take a quick break. This is Business Brief. The International Energy Agency issues a dire warning. It says the Middle East war threatens to spark the worst energy crisis in decades. IEA Chief Fatih Birol described the situation as very severe during remarks at the National Press Club in Australia. He notes that the world has already lost 11 million barrels of oil per day, surpassing the total amount lost in the two oil crises back in the 1970s. The King and Queen of Thailand pilot their own aircraft during a state visit to Laos. The couple personally handled the controls of a Boeing 737-800 Royal aircraft from Thailand, drawing widespread attention for their blend of royal duty and aviation skills. Footage from the cockpit showed the King's piloting, impressing viewers online. The aircraft landed at Watay International Airport on March 16 during a 3-day visit. The royal couple was invited by the President of Laos. Ayala Land rebrands its flexible workspace brand Clock In to ClickSpace as demand rises for hybrid and tech-driven offices. Moving beyond traditional co-working, ClickSpace offers plug-and-play setups, customizable offices, and enterprise-grade support to help businesses scale and adapt. The concept targets large tenants in technology, creative, and professional services seeking more agile workplace solutions. A flagship site opens at One Ayala with more locations planned nationwide over the next 1 to 2 years. A unified push is underway to position the Philippines as a top investment destination in Asia. Business leaders, together with the government, launched the 2026 Philippine Investment Mission. Chesulit has the details.
Global tax policy expert and Asian Consulting Group Chairman Mon Abrea announces the launch of the 2026 Philippine Investment Mission, dubbed The Philippine Rises, the World Invests. This is in partnership with the Philippine Economic Zone Authority. At a forum moderated by entrepreneur Wilson Lee Flores, Abrea and PEZA Director General Theo Panga presented the initiative that aims to position the Philippines as a serious investment destination in Asia. According to Abrea, this program is anchored on reform, credibility, and global competitiveness. Abrea adds that the mission seeks to strengthen investments both globally and locally.
Why invest in the Philippines? Because it's for us Filipinos and for the next generation of Filipinos and for a better Philippines. Tayo po lahat ang makikinabang dito.
Panga, for his part, says that PEZA has taken notice of the global and local headwinds that impact investment flows and business confidence amid the ongoing tensions in the Middle East. He says that the jumbo oil price hikes have posed risks to logistics and supply chain costs, especially for export-oriented industries that are highly dependent on fuel and transportation. Despite these, Panga says it's business as usual for economic zones. He also reiterates his support for the amendments to the PEZA law that will boost the attractiveness of economic zones to investors.
It will all depend if this will be included in the LEDAC, the priority bills under the administration. But if not this year, we're hoping that by next year it will be passed already.
Meanwhile, Abrea stresses that the government should strengthen its targeted and direct subsidy for affected sectors of the fuel price hikes. The tax expert says that suspending excise tax may help in the short term, but it cannot be sustainable in the long term. He explains that if the tax imposed on imported fuel is completely suspended, revenue losses incurred by the government may pose greater risks on consumers. Abrea says that the government will go in bigger debt to compensate for this deficit. Chesulit, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
President Ferdinand Marcos Junior orders an additional 50 million pesos fuel subsidy for farmers amid soaring fuel prices. In his vlog, the president said the fund will be managed by regional offices to ensure all farmers receive support. The Department of Agriculture will oversee distribution, with each qualified farmer set to receive 5,000 pesos. The DA says qualified beneficiaries are those listed in the registry system for basic sectors in agriculture under the General Appropriations Act. The Navy spokesperson for West Philippine Sea reveals the recent arrest of 3 Filipino defense personnel accused of spying for China may represent only a fraction of a broader network. The 3 Filipinos allegedly passed sensitive information to Chinese handlers. Speaking to BNC's At the Forefront, Rear Admiral Roy Vincent Trinidad warned that this is just the tip of the iceberg and suggested that more operatives could still be embedded within the military.
Navy headquarters with DND and the third one had links to the Philippine Coast Guard. May mga kaibigan siya doon. And because of that, nalalaman niya mga usapan, nakapasok siya sa group chat, eventually sa emails, official emails.
He added that the country needs tougher anti-espionage laws as these are already outdated. He also warned that China could take advantage of the Middle East crisis by intensifying their harassment in the West Philippine Sea.
All warfare is based on deception. So if you analyze the warfighting thought, it will not be difficult to say that this will be for them an opportunity. a window of opportunity to come in, to increase their coercive and aggressive actions, to have more consistent presence in Bajo de Masinloc, Sabina Shoal, and the other features.
Precious metal prices are tumbling sharply as gold and silver post steep losses in Friday trading. Gold futures fell over 3% to below $4,500 per ounce, while silver dropped nearly 7% to below $68. Analysts say though precious metals are considered safe havens, rising oil prices have reignited expectations that inflation will accelerate. Cuba begins restoring its energy system on Sunday, a day after a nationwide collapse of the entire grid left millions of people in the dark for the third time this month. The grid failed Saturday evening after a major power plant in Nuevitas went offline, causing a cascade effect that knocked out electricity to Cuba's roughly 10 million people.
At this moment, power has been restored from Pinar del Rio province to Santiago de Cuba. Throughout the day, Unit 1 of the Havana Thermoelectric Plant, Unit Number 4 of the Cienfuegos Thermoelectric Plant, and the Guterres Unit, Antonio Guterres Thermoelectric Plant, have been reconnected. At this moment, all essential facilities are receiving service from the system.
Nearly 500,000 homes and businesses in Havana, approximately 55% of the total, as well as 43 hospitals were back online by Sunday afternoon. Cuba has suffered 3 major blackouts this March as a U.S. fuel blockade cuts off foreign oil imports. Former Senator Cynthia Villar denies personally owning a contested property in Cavite, saying it belongs to a family real estate firm. The Moonwalk property was transferred to Villar-owned Fine Properties in June 2022 after being reclassified as non-agricultural decades ago. A legal dispute over the land reached the office of the president, which affirms the property is exempt from the Comprehensive Agrarian Reform Program. Villar's camp warns it may take legal action against those spreading false claims about the property. We'll take a short break. This is Business Brief. Asian shares fall as hopes for Iran resolution dim after U.S. President Trump's latest comments. Trump warns the U.S. will obliterate Iran's power plants if Tehran did not fully reopen the Strait of Hormuz within 48 hours. In response, Tehran said it will retaliate by targeting U.S. and Israeli energy and infrastructure assets in the region. Asian shares are in the red, with Kospi falling the most at nearly 7%. In currency trading, the U.S. dollar mostly appreciates against the Asian currencies. In commodities, gold trades lower while oil prices are mixed. In crypto, Bitcoin drops 0.5%, Ethereum drops over 1%. Oil prices climb as U.S. President Donald Trump's comments dim hopes for an early end to the Iran war. By 3:40 p.m. Manila time, Brent crude hit $113.83 a barrel. Trump warned over the weekend that the U.S. will obliterate Iran's power plants if the Strait of Hormuz is not fully reopened within 48 hours. Philippine shares end in the negative territory. The PSCI closes almost 2% lower to 58.99. All the sectoral indices end in the red, with holding firms falling the most at almost 3%. Decliners outpace advancers 167 to 46, with value turnover at 8.1 billion pesos. All the day's most active stocks end in the red, with Apex Mining falling the most at nearly 9%. In currencies, the peso closes at 60.30 against the US dollar from the previous close of 60.10. This is the lowest close in history. Transport Group Manibela announces a 2-day strike on March 26 and 27 due to the continued rise in fuel prices.
Wala na kaming may korupsyon. Hindi lahat nakakakuha. Kahit nagpasa ka pa ng listahan, hindi lahat nabibigyan.
Manibala Chair Mar Valbuena condemned President Ferdinand Marcos Junior's supposed slow decision-making on suspending excise tax in fuel products despite certifying a bill earlier that authorizes suspending or reducing excise tax in fuel. Valbuena said several groups will be participating, including those who drive UV Express, motorcycle taxis, and modern jeeps. Piston, Laban TNVS, and other groups are also coming. Lawmakers hold dialogue with Fisherfolk in Puerto Princesa over soaring fuel prices and continued Chinese harassment in the West Philippine Sea. More than 100 Fisherfolk, civil society groups, and local officials join a unified call for urgent government action on the twin crises. Lawmakers pledge expanded subsidies to ease the impact of fuel hikes and stronger protection against harassment by Chinese vessels. Filipino fisherfolk remain frontliners defending national sovereignty and a vital backbone of the economy and food security. Manila Water Corporation will expand the Wawa Calawis water supply system with the Upper Wawa Dam. The company, led by ultra-Bilyonaryo Enrique Razon Jr., said the project aims to strengthen water security for millions in Metro Manila and Rizal. Phase 2 will boost supply to areas including Pasig, Quezon, Mandaluyong, and San Juan. Manila Water added the expansion will improve system flexibility, water pressure, and support future demand. Philippine Airlines, or PAL, launches its 85th anniversary film, an inspirational tribute to its people who continue to bring the Filipino care in action at every stage of travel. Now live on PAL's official YouTube channel, the short film follows the story of Angeline de Guzman, a working student who was encouraged by her co-workers to pursue a career in aviation. The film also shines a spotlight on PAL's Share the Care Award program, which supports 85 scholars from the National Aviation Academy of the Philippines. And that's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Robert Tan. Join us again tomorrow for the stories that help you plan your next big, bold business moves. Only here on BNC, the Bilyonaryo News Channel.